I want to welcome some very special people today to the podcast. Willie and Phil, you have quite a story, and I am so happy to be able to talk to you today. And I know with being able to manage our technology back and forth that you have headphones in, but yes, it does give you a very modern look. And so what I'm hoping to be able to cover today is about your story and, of course, your frustration and what you've been trying to do to really reconnect your family. And your technique also was a unique one, and I want people to know about it. So tell me a little bit about each of you so that the listeners have a sense and the watchers now on YouTube have a chance to get to know you. So Willie, what do you do when you're not chatting with me?
Oh, well, I'm a floral designer, which is one of my most favorite things to do. I absolutely love doing flowers, and I do a lot of it here in Las Vegas. And yeah, that's mainly what I love to do.
Yeah. You've done it for a long time?
30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
You must be very good. And so do you work for a company or you have your own?
I work for several different places.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I work for a couple of the wedding chapels. I work for a flower shop. I work for an event company, that does a lot of flowers for the hotels on the Strip. So yeah, I get pretty busy.
Yes, it's beautiful work. It's sometimes painstaking, takes a lot of patience.
Yes, it does. And sometimes when people ask me what I do, and I say, "Oh, I'm a floral designer," I go, "Oh, it must be so nice to play with flowers," like it's not a real job.
Right, exactly.
And it really is a lot of work, especially at holidays. When you're in the floral industry, you don't really have holidays because you're doing things for,
Right.
the yeah.
Yeah, and I think also being an artist, but dealing with a medium where you have to keep things alive while you're working
Yes.
with them, that's a whole
Yes.
other pressure. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right. And Phil, what are you up to?
Not as much as I used to. I do a little bit of marketing, computer work, but I'm also doing some photography now. I'm starting to learn and get into doing a bit of photography, more of a hobby on that side. So
he's getting pretty good.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, he is.
But I enjoy it. I do.
That's nice. That's nice. It's nice when people go into retirement or semi-retirement and they can explore the artistic sides of themselves. It's really quite nice.
Yeah, it's a learning curve for me because I've never really gotten into the technical part of it. So it's a lot of learning all the different things that I have to know for different scenarios and lighting and stuff. But it's been fun. I enjoy it.
I'm glad. With everything that people do, there's a learning curve, and you hope for that also because it stays interesting, it stays vibrant, and a challenge. And so let's go back then to a little bit about your family history and what brings us to the discussion that we're going to be having today. So tell us a little bit about your family. Who's a part of your family?
Well, Willie and I have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. And now, way back when Willie and I were about 16 years old, we both got into Scientology. So all our kids were raised in a Scientology environment.
Yeah.
2 of our kids ended up joining the Scientology C organization, which is the full commitment. People go in, they sign a billion-year contract, they commit, they stay in the organization, they're fully controlled by the organization, and work really long hours for very little, if any, money. So
at the time when they both of the children wanted to go into the C organization, I did have some trepidation about them going in because I knew the intensity that they were going to be involved in. But at the same time, they were I also thought that, okay, well, at least if they go into the Sea organization, they're not going to get involved in drugs and things like that. So I kind of convinced myself that it was probably going to be better for them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have a lot of regret.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know a lot of the stuff that went on at
Yes,
that time.
we didn't.
we were considered what were called public Scientologists, meaning we were out. We weren't staff or Sea Org or anything like that. So we were Scientology sort of they compartment information. So we weren't really we had no idea of what all this stuff that was going on,
Yeah.
harmful things.
Plus, I don't think that we were very good Scientologists because we weren't really, you know,
not
in
very
there
active.
doing.
Yeah.
We weren't very active.
Yeah. In fact, the reason our kids ended up getting in the Sea Org was because we lived in an area that in Clearwater, Florida, that was just all their friends were Scientologists.
Yeah.
Right.
So they ended up getting in. I mean, we did try a little bit to keep them from going in, especially our oldest son, because he wanted a music career, and he went from Florida to California to play guitar, and Scientology kept, a young guy, single, and Scientology kept trying to get him to join staff out there. And he'd call me once in a while and say, oh, they want me to join staff at Pasadena. And I'd say, no, to stick to your music career. And anyway, he would, every couple of months, he'd call me, and, he was being heavily recruited for staff somewhere. Finally, Scientology Celebrity Center said, well, you can join staff here and still play guitar. And he joined staff there, and now he doesn't play guitar at all. So
and hasn't
for some time.
Yeah.
So, they lied to get him in, but
I want to say two things, and I want to come back to you telling us more about your family in the earlier years. First, you mentioned something really important about how you didn't have all the information.
Right.
Yes.
And that's very much on purpose in retrospect, as you can see, that it's so that people really have to go into things blindly and with the information they're given, with the kind of bias that they're given, with the information specifically chosen for that particular audience, and to get that kind of person interested. But that when you don't have the benefit of having all the information, then you can't make a fully educated decision.
Right.
But then people really do blame themselves for it. But really, your intention was a good one based on the information you have.
Right, that we have. The thing is that it's not just not having the correct information, but they lie. The culture in Scientology is full of lies. It's just totally part of the culture. They'll lie even if they don't need to lie. So, to get someone to join staff in the Sea Org, they'll be promised this, promised that. We were told things that, oh yeah, they'll finish their school, they'll do this, they'll get that, and they'll eat all organic food, and it's just
right.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of not just having the wrong information. It's they lie, and we thought, oh boy, it's going to be paradise for these kids.
I'd like to say something about that. When they were recruiting our eldest son to get in, how they eventually got him really was they were spewing the line to him that, the society on Earth was going down so fast that there really wasn't going to be a future unless, they get more people on board to save the world.
Okay.
And, our kids, they're good kids, and they wanted to help.
Yeah.
And so he had decided that he would be willing to sacrifice his career to save the world. That was the view that he went in with. And it just says to me what a good person he is to want to help. It's just too bad that
it wasn't true.
That it was
right. It's this false dilemma that you see a lot, that you can either pursue the goals that you have in life or save the world, so that your own goals suddenly seem selfish and
Yeah.
a waste of time, you know,
Right.
because here you could be doing something that's going to save the planet. And then you feel under this pressure to make the commitment because otherwise you're going to be a bad person. But you
Right.
don't have the opportunity to think, is this even real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something else that you mentioned about that they told him that he'd be able to pursue his career playing guitar. I've heard that a lot with people in the arts where they really end their development as an
Yeah.
artist once they get
Yes.
involved in Scientology.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is what happened. That is what happened with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So to go back to the chronology, so then how many of your kids were involved in the Sea Org?
Two of our kids.
Yeah.
Our third son, our other son, our third kid, he was actually in California at the same time our oldest son, Mike, joined the Sea Org. He was in the recruiter's office and had a Sea Org contract in front of him. And he said, "Oh, wait a minute, let me just call my dad." He called me and he told me, he said, "I'm here. I'm not sure I want to do this." I said, "Hop on a bus. There'll be an airline ticket home for you at the airport. Come home." And he did. So for that reason, we have grandchildren and great-grandchildren now. So
Yes.
Wow. Who you have a relationship with and you get to see.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that you have that. And I think for people who don't yet know your story, they will come to understand how meaningful that is.
Yes. I can't even imagine. I mean, the most wonderful thing has been being grandparents and now great grandparents as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm happy that we have that in our life, and I'm sad that two of our children have not had the opportunity to, you know, live the life that they should have had.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And have the connection with family that
Yes,
they
Yeah.
should have been and should continue to have.
I know it is. It's very difficult sometimes over holidays, you know, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, you know, birthdays. We are missing that dynamic with our whole family.
Mhm.
We're just so looking forward to the day that we could all be together as a family and participate with each other. Um, it is hard sometimes not having them with us.
So I'm curious to find out the different things that you had tried previous to the Billboard that we're going to talk about.
Right.
But previous to that, you know, people don't just start saying, "Oh, I think I'll put together a billboard." It's
Right.
usually
Right.
like
Right.
a little farther down the line. So what did you
Well,
try for that?
we tried to think of some ideas to see if we could reach the kids. I mean, we were trying to come up with all sorts of ideas to, because once Scientology disconnects you, shuns you, you're cut off completely.
Right.
There's no way. You can't make a phone call. You can't get through by email, letter. There's just no way to contact the kids.
Right.
So we started off, we were trying to think of different ideas. I even had an idea of hiding a burner phone in a coffee cup and having somebody smuggle it into our son and say, "Call."
Yeah.
Just
But can
different stuff.
Can I back up a bit though?
Yeah.
Before the Billboard, we as Scientologists knew that if we demonstrated that we were no longer participating,
Yeah.
that we would lose our kids. So we were what you call under the radar, where we could walk the walk, talk the talk, and make it appear like we were still in, but
Mhm.
really we were not. And during that period when we were under the radar, we did have some minor opportunities to visit with our two children,
Mhm.
but really not very often. And then once it came out that we
Yeah.
were,
We did that for about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
We were actually out. We had decided we're not doing it anymore. We didn't want to do it anymore. But we knew that if we spoke out, that we would lose the kids.
Yeah.
So that went right up till my Scientology OT8 sister turned us in.
Yes.
There you go.
That's
I
what
know.
happened.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And she knew it. She told us. She said, "You either toe the line in Scientology, or you lose your kids."
Yeah. When she got wind that we were not doing anything anymore, she actually flew to Clearwater from Canada to handle us. And it was during that conversation that she pretty much gave us the ultimatum that we either go into the flag organization and get this worked out, meaning handling us, or that was it. We were going to lose not only our children, but every other Scientologist who had been our friend. That
Oh yeah, you lose everything.
You lose everything.
Friends, family, business contacts, everything.
And if you have any business contacts, overnight, those are gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah, go ahead.
So from there, we kind of didn't do much for maybe a year. That's how we ended up moving out west, because for us, Clearwater, there wasn't anything left.
Right.
But we also wanted to be closer to where the kids were in California.
Right.
That's how we ended up in Vegas. So we figured we're close enough that we could drive there if we needed to, if we did make contact with the kids.
Nice.
But probably we tried. I mean, we were calling. We would go down there to the buildings and try to make contact, but they wouldn't let us on the property. I mean, their security people would come up, say, "You're not welcome here." Just so we were turned away all the time.
Or if you step a toe on their property, then they would call the police. Security would be circling us. It was just impossible to get.
It is quite impossible, and I've talked to a lot of families where it's maddening. It's maddening. So about disconnection. To start with the whole disconnection policy, that Scientology has often said that it doesn't exist. Although I do have forms that my former clients have brought me that were their letters.
But you know how I term that, though, when someone brings that up and Scientology says, "Well, we don't have a disconnection policy," I say they have a disconnection practice.
Yes.
Even if there wasn't a policy, they still practice disconnection.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether they have a policy or not. They practice disconnection.
Practice it. Right. Okay.
So
yeah.
There is that.
Right. And then also to define what it means to handle someone.
That really means for you to change your viewpoint from being a critic to being on board with Scientology. Handle that part with regards to what we were talking about as far as handle. Handle in Scientology means to take care of a situation. But as far as somebody who's what they would call disaffected or a critic, then to handle means that they would not only just turn around, but they would be on board totally with Scientology, donating money, making up for any damages that Scientology feels you have done by doing some activity that would contribute to Scientology's motion, forward motion, whatever.
Yeah.
Which is so far from where we were at all. There's just no way in a million years that we would have even gone close to that.
Right.
Once we were out, we were out. There's just, we knew, once we knew it was a lie, that the basic thing, I mean, the reason we got in was the, reading about Clear and OT, Clear especially, that's what kind of got me in. Once I realized that was a lie and there was no such thing as Clear, that was it. It was a switch for me. I go, okay, well, I'm done. It was the whole thing, the premise of the whole organization was based on a lie.
Right. And he got out first.
Okay.
So he was trying to work out how he was going to talk to me about it.
Oh, wow.
But it was interesting because how he went about it is the thing that turned it around for me was when he asked me, if you read the definition of a clear, have you ever seen one? And the wheels just started turning. And having looked at what a clear was supposed to be, I had the realization, no, I have not seen one. Not only have I not seen someone who is clear, but all these people that we had known for 20, 30, 40 years still had the same problems. that they had when they got in. And so having had that realization, that's what got me out. And
it's really important, I think, also to define for people who are not as familiar with the Scientology terminology. So if you can define what it means to be clear, which I know is the optimal
Yeah, a clear, according to what Hubbard wrote in Dianetics, is he says that you have what's called a reactive mind, which is any painful episodes in your past or losses and things like that. So they do this counseling, auditing, they call it, to rid a person of those past traumas. The end result being that you would be clear, and a clear would have the ability to have perfect memory, perfect eyesight, perfect health, and perfect computation ability for numbers, whatever. So even really, I was a teenager when I got in, and I was a teenager wearing glasses and interested in girls. And I thought, oh boy, if I can handle my eyesight, I'll be golden. So that was one of the things that got me in. I was a teenager, so I was hooked. So, but and I remember even once when I was at one of the local, well, actually it was in England, but I wrote a note and I said, look, I'd like to have all the auditing processes that Hubbard came up with as far as eyesight. This is when we were still in, to see if I could handle my eyes, because I still, after 20, 30 years at that point, still had poor eyesight. But I never got an answer. And that was kind of when we started drifting away at that point, because we weren't kind of getting what we wanted out of it. But anyway, the thing on when I was talking to Willie about once I'd gotten out, some couples are afraid to talk to their spouse because they fear that their spouse will turn them into Scientology and they'll get in trouble and lose everything.
Which has happened.
I didn't have that with Willie. I had no fear that that would happen, but it does happen. It's a snitch culture in Scientology, and that's how with my sister, it came about that once she found out that we were out, that she turned us in. That she went straight from that conversation into the flag base in Clearwater and turned us in. And I told her, I said, look, if you go from here to there, and we lose our kids, that's on you. And I told her, I said, that is on you if we lose our kids.
And overnight, it was just boom.
Yeah, cut off overnight. From everybody.
It is. It's so hurtful. Beyond hurtful. That's a lackluster term for it. It's such a betrayal.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're right. It is a snitch culture, and to understand why that is a really important thing. That when people are all vying for a position within something that has a strict hierarchy, where it's actually, as you notice, so easy to lose your standing, you're going to do what you can to keep your stats up. You're going to do what you can to...
And my sister, she's my sister and love her anyway, but she is very status oriented. We weren't so much. We didn't really, care for that so much. It didn't, we never bought into the whole IAS, the International Association of Scientology, which is you donate for your status. And we never got into that. We just didn't do it. We never got patron or anything like that. We just, and I actually told our daughter once that, there was fundraisers going on, and I said, I'll never donate to any of those. We were still in. I said, I'll never donate to any of those.
It was a shock to her.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Okay. Yeah. You both talked about being able to see things, and I just wanted to come back to that for a sec before we continue talking about trying to reach out to your kids. When Willie, you were talking about how when Phil talked to you about how to help you start to see things, he didn't say you have to see it like this. He said, why don't you think about it? Think about the people you know, right? And see if you can kind of take in the information, evaluate it for yourself, see it for yourself. It reminds me of this quote that I use a lot by Dr. Margaret Singer, that being in a cult teaches you to learn to deny the evidence of your senses.
Yes.
And so here you were seeing things clearly, and that, Phil, you went in because you were wearing glasses, but meanwhile, you were able to see things. There, along the way, in a symbolic way, you had very good vision. You said no to certain things. You didn't get involved in certain things. You didn't,
Right.
pay to play in the same ways. And,
Yeah,
people felt
there were times through the years actually that I probably came close to being kicked out of Scientology because of that. And I kind of wish, I look back and I wish somebody would have kicked me out back then, because we would have just gotten on with our lives at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, even way back in the Guardian's office days, when Scientology had their Guardian's office doing illegal activities, I was asked to do something illegal, to break into a building and it was a news organization. They wanted me to break into files. I said, there's just no way in a million years. I said, you can declare me and kick me out, but I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And I mean, even the one of their seniors came and talked to me and said, oh, I heard you're afraid we're going to declare you. I said, no, I'm not afraid of being declared. I'm just not going to go and do that.
Phil was a terrible Scientologist.
I was a terrible Scientologist. I know.
Thank goodness. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
To a degree, but I was a terrible Scientologist too long.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Right.
But I want to come back. I just want to come back to something though.
Please.
When Phil had asked me to really look at what, had I ever seen a Claire?
Yeah.
From that point on, it was like I had seen things along the way in my life as a Scientologist that I disagreed with, but you're not allowed to disagree with Scientology. And Hubbard tells you this is the way it is, this is how you have to think, and if you disagree, then you get pulled in, talked to. They do whatever they can to handle you. But it was after Phil had asked me that, it was like it was like all these things that I saw that I kind of just pushed away because you're taught to push it away.
Right.
All these things, all these little disagreements that I had with over the years, just suddenly all came forward, and it was like, boom! It so opened my eyes, and it was seeing Scientology from outside looking in, and I could finally see it.
Mm-hmm.
It was
right. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it was so rapid. It was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's so powerful about those moments is not only do you suddenly recall all of these red flags,
yes,
but you also have a sense and a clearer sense of how you were handicapped from being able to act on them.
Right.
And take it in as information that was going to help you be better informed and make a more kind of well-educated decision about staying there and devoting yourself to it or not. And then what is it? Why is it that built into that system is that they enforce people to have blinders on?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And then once the blinders are off and you can see it, having studied Scientology and knowing what the policies are and how they behave to people that don't toe the line, that caused us to really stay under the radar for so long, because we knew what would happen if we made public our separation from the church.
I think we knew to a degree, but I think we knew to some degree, but I don't think we knew really how intense and how much it would be.
Yeah.
I was shocked really at how complete the whole thing was and how fast. I mean, there must have been people calling people around about us, because there were people who, just how they found out that we were out so fast, I don't know.
Yeah. Our numbers on Facebook just boomed. They were, people were gone off of our Facebook. Friends, people that we were friends with for 30, 40 years wouldn't talk to us.
I'll tell you one. This is sort of humorous, this one. One of the top levels you can get to in Scientology is OT8. And an auditor is someone who is who train to put people through processes and stuff. Well, one of Scientology's OT8 auditors called me after we were out and out for a little while and we were being critical. And there's a thing in Scientology that Hubbard wrote about what he calls PDH, pain drug hypnosis, where supposedly psychiatrists will give you drugs, pain, and hypnotize you to be critical of Scientology. And his whole purpose was to find out if I had been PDH'd by a psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I told him, I said, I'd never been to a psychiatrist for one. And I said, and any doctors I'd ever been to were Scientology doctors. And so then he says, did you ever have any blank times in your memory when you went to the dentist? Meaning that,
see if that
right,
works.
meaning that a dentist will also be able to PDH you to be a critic of Scientology.
Mm-hmm.
That's the paranoia of Scientology.
Right.
So,
and also
anyway.
that it's somehow underhanded if someone has something negative to say about Scientology. And it could be that they're just warning you because they know the truth. And
yeah, I think they just can't figure that someone can just turn without it being, you know, like, why would somebody just turn and criticize Scientology? Because it's never them. It's
never
got to
them,
be
right,
some
exactly.
other.
Exactly. It's so diagnostic also in a way that I
Yeah.
think they don't realize. It's diagnostic of who starts the organization, because whoever starts the organization has a certain personality style or personality disorder that then trickles down
Right.
throughout
Yeah.
the organization, right? So if you think about Elmer Hubbard being a disordered person and being a narcissist, then narcissists don't reflect and they don't see their part in things. If you don't like them, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
And
Yeah.
if you think that there's something they said that's false, then you just didn't hear it right, or you're not smart enough to understand it, or insightful enough, or whatever it is.
Right.
So that just comes down through the organization, and it's always on you. And always on you, right?
Yeah.
Which is very hard when you're still devoted. When you take that in, and then you work harder and you take more classes and you go for more auditing and you try to work on yourself, and then it becomes this hamster wheel.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So here you were trying to see your two kids. You were trying to make contact and trying to go visit. They wouldn't let you on the premises.
Right. Yeah. The next thing we did at that point was I came up with the idea of doing a missing poster.
Mm-hmm.
We hadn't seen our kids for a couple of years. So I made up a missing poster with our son's face on it, missing, last seen at Scientology Celebrity Center, and I put my phone number on it. And we posted them all around Celebrity Center. Somebody took one and posted it in their laundry room in their apartment. Somebody saw it, posted it on Instagram. It went viral.
Yeah.
And it got all over the place. I mean, it was out there. I even noticed that one of Leah Remini's shows, that she flashed that missing poster up in one of her shows one day.
Right.
So that poster got out there, and Scientology hated it. They actually had one of their top attorneys, one of their $1,500 an hour attorneys, send us a cease and desist letter.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a crazy letter, but I mean, they just said, you know, you got to stop this and stop trying to contact the kids. And we were actually back in Vegas at the time, and we weren't planning to go back to LA and do any protesting or anything for, you know, a while. And I said, no, we're going right now. If they're asking us to cease and desist, we're going to protest again.
Right.
We got in the car and we drove to LA, and we were walking around,
back at it.
right back out walking around, protesting around the buildings. I won't, you know, I look at it this way: whatever they can do to us is not going to be as bad as them taking our kids. It's just not going to balance out. So,
in Phil's side of the family, they have difficulties with their back. We had heard that through the grapevine that something was happening with Michael, that he was not in good shape.
Oh, okay.
So that was a huge alarm for us.
Sure.
And we had to come down as fast as possible. And so then the protesting really became in earnest, because it it became a priority to, save our son.
Right.
Because one thing that Scientology will never do is, if you are considered a suppressive person, which they call us, we are suppressive people, and if you are a critic of the church, and you have a loved one on the inside, if something happens to that loved one, you will never know, because they will not tell you.
Yeah. Plus, they won't give him the medical care.
Right.
So we went to the police to do a welfare check. And so we went to the local LAPD office down there nearby the church.
Mm-hmm.
And we asked them to do a welfare check, and they agreed to do it. And so they said, just go back to Celebrity Center, and then we'll
Meet you
there. So we went up there, and there were two officers, and they went up to Scientology, to the building, because we couldn't go on the property. They went on, and they were there for a while. They came back and they said, well, we talked to him on the phone and he's fine. I said, well, did you see him? No.
Right.
We talked to him on the phone. I said, well, look, you have to see him. So they went back, and they were there for a while again. They came back and they said, well, he's not on the property. I said, well, so anyway, so they went back again, because I kept pushing it. I said, you got to be able to see him.
Yeah.
So they came back and said, well, you have an address. They gave us an address. And so we're going to go and just check on him. You wait here. So we waited. We were on the sidewalk outside Celebrity Center. They drove off. So 20 minutes or so later, one of the officers called me, and he said, they gave us a fake address. So
and he was really
pissed. The officer was pissed.
Good.
So they started researching. He asked me a bunch of questions about our son's wife's family, this and that. They tracked down his wife's father.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Who was in the hospital. They went to the hospital, and our son Mike was there.
Surrounded by security
Surrounded
guards.
by Scientology security people.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had written a letter that they gave to our son. You do the rest.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's okay. I understand.
He gave the letter to our son, and he had our son call us while in their presence. The police officer had told Michael that if he wanted to leave, he could have like 100 people down here to get him out, to protect him, whatever. But I know how loyal our son is, and he loves his wife. Anyway, he called, and basically he said, I never want to hear from you again. That was hard.
Yes, more than hard. I don't know if there's a word for it.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
But that does not sound like my son. I know my son, and I know that he loves us.
Mm-hmm.
For him to say that is spewing the line, the Scientology line, and all of his training on how he's supposed to react to people that are considered suppressive.
Right.
And
it goes back to this false dilemma, right?
Right. That is Scientology conditioning right there.
So he knew exactly how to react, because he was trained to react that way. But I know in my heart that's not how he feels.
Yeah.
No.
I know that.
No.
So after that, as we were leaving Celebrity Center,
this kills me.
We were walking away, and one of their security people was just laughing at us. Just laughing.
I know. I turned to Phil. I turned to Phil. I said, Phil, that security guard is laughing his head off.
Because after that phone call, I was like
devastated.
Right.
Yeah.
I looked at that security guard, and because I thought we were done. I looked at him. I said, "We'll be back, bigger."
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the Billboard was born.
So cruel. It's so cruel to be laughed at and to be mocked in that way.
Yeah.
He's part of that system too, and he's not understanding the hurt and the devastation. Yeah.
And what Scientology does not understand is that when they do these things, they are creating enemies. Phil and I were never the kind of people who would, get out and protest and fight as hard as we did, but we did fight hard because of they like I said, they just create enemies by doing things like disconnection. And
After that, it wasn't that long after that we came up with the Billboard idea. It had been mentioned by a few people, and then so we kind of started working on it, and there was a graphic designer who offered to help put it together. Most of the design on the billboard was his idea.
Right.
Originally there were pictures of our kids on it. I said, we can't really do that. And then there was pictures of a whole bunch of people that were all of disconnected people. I said, we'd have to go around to each one of those people and get permission. So let's blur the pictures of people. But anyway, we worked on it until we got a really good design. And then we found a place to get the poster. We hired a company. And we did a fundraiser, and when we started the fundraiser, we hardly had anything going, and then I think we had maybe $70 on our fundraiser towards the billboard, and it's not cheap to do a billboard. It's $4,000 or $5,000 a month. So then Tony Ortega jumped in, and he posted it on his blog, and within days we had enough money to do the billboard, and for several months.
Yeah, for several months.
So, he saved our butts on that one. He really did.
Yeah.
So we hired a company, and we were one day out from having the billboard go up, and Scientology went in and got them to drop us. They threatened them. I'm not sure how they got them.
Yeah.
So we found another company, and they agreed to do it. And again, the artwork was done, printed, everything was ready to go the next day. And again, Scientology walked in. And from what I understand, they offered to this company to buy up all their empty billboard space in Hollywood. Must have been millions of dollars worth of billboards just to shut us down.
Yeah.
And then the third company we went to, though, I explained to them what had happened. I said, and they were a Christian-owned organization out of Louisiana, and they said, no, we believe in the First Amendment, right? So anyway, they stuck with us, and they put the billboard up, and the billboard went up, and we were having a little launch thing. We thought we'd maybe have a half a dozen people there. We got there, and there were news people everywhere.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. There was like...
it was a shock.
There was Good Morning America. There was
Inside Edition.
Inside Edition. There was, we were, and then we were, after that, all Los Angeles news TV guys were there. We're doing interviews with all of these people. And then after that, the interviews continued for months. I was doing radio interviews. They set up a studio here in Vegas that had us on live morning TV in Australia. BBC did a thing through South America, an interview with us in Spanish. They had it all translated. So, it was just Europe, everywhere. Daily Mail in the UK. It was just international press for months and months that went on.
I would like to back up a little bit.
Sure.
With the billboard basically said, to my loved one in Scientology, call me. And then on the bottom was stopscientologydisconnection.com.
Mm-hmm.
We got a little bit of criticism that the billboard didn't go up where our children could necessarily see it. But at this point, we wanted to take what we could get, but we also wanted to bring to light the whole idea of disconnection, because people had heard about Scientology, but most people didn't know anything about it. And the billboard really put in motion the whole concept of disconnection. And that was one of the things. Yeah. And I think one of the reasons why the billboard, why the funding, got done so quickly, we didn't realize how many people were going through the same thing that we were. And the billboard, I think, was a way for people to contribute to the motion who maybe didn't necessarily have the capacity to go out and protest and So this was a way that we could all come together
Right.
and
For a campaign.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the whole idea of the billboard was really to
and it did get out there.
Yeah.
I mean, when Willie and I were in LA, we were staying in a hotel there, and when we were checking out, the manager came out and said, "Oh, we saw you on TV," and I didn't know Scientology was like that. And you know, and then we were in a restaurant, and the manager came over and said, "Oh, I feel so bad for you guys."
Yeah,
and
we saw you on TV, and
so it got out there.
It did get out there.
That it did make an impact.
But we were also hoping, because there's a lot of public Scientologists, that someone would see the billboard and that it would at some point filter over to our children that we were doing this. We wanted them to know that we were fighting for them, that we were not, you know.
Our daughter at least knew the billboards were going up, because when we did a billboard in Clearwater also. We were driving to Clearwater, and we stopped in a hotel, and we got a call from our daughter. Now, this was a call that Scientology put her up to, and they were actually in the room. We could tell they were in the background there. And she had said that if we wanted to have a relationship with her and Michael again, that we would have to stop the billboard and no more criticizing Scientology, and not do that. We were doing a little documentary as well, and not do that. And I said, I'm willing to do all three of those things. I said, we'll stop all three of those things. No more billboards, no more TV show, no more criticizing. But you have to do one thing for me, and that is stop disconnection for all of the people who Scientology is forced to disconnect from. And it went back and forth a little, but she was being pushed a lot, and then it got a little. I mean, I just kept staying calm. I said, "No, look, it's just got to be for everybody. I can't. How could I face all those other people who chipped in for a billboard if I said, yeah, okay, we got what we wanted, but sorry, you guys." I wouldn't have been right. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So
plus, we know enough about Scientology to know that they probably wouldn't keep their promise.
Yeah, they wouldn't have kept their promise. They would have had us jump through some weird hoops.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we stopped everything, then that would be it. So they can't be trusted anyway. So, and then at one point during the conversation, halfway through her sentence, she got cut off. So we're sure that because it wasn't going anywhere, that one of the Scientology handlers that were in the room with her just hung the phone off. Yeah. So that was the last time we heard from our daughter. So
when was that?
What was that, 3 years ago?
Yeah, about 3 years ago.
3-4 years.
To go back to a couple things that you were mentioning, first of all, about Tony Ortega's site, if people want to check out the Underground Bunker, you can see a list at the bottom with numbers that grow every day, with people who have had their loved ones taken away from them by Scientology, and people who want to be mentioned on that list will mention their name, and people who have been disconnected from them. And I know it's a tiny portion.
It is.
It is.
There's thousands of families. Yeah. In fact, I think that probably every person in Scientology has some family or friend or both who has a disconnect, has some disconnection with them, because it's so widespread.
Right.
Anytime somebody steps out of line or has a Facebook friend with somebody who's out of line, they get disconnected from.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's terrible. And it's also such a powerful threat to have loom over you. And I think people and Scientology that knows that it's the most powerful threat. But it also says so much about the nature of relationships being seen as conditional in Scientology, that here, your daughter says, even though these were not her ideas, but that unless you do the following things, we can't have a relationship with each other. Your mother, father, and daughter. It shouldn't be that unless you do or don't do the following things, you can't have a relationship. Like, who decided?
Yeah, why does Scientology have say in your family?
Right.
It shouldn't. Yeah.
Exactly right. And also that the billboard isn't anti-Scientology. You're not saying something bad about it on the billboard. It's actually just saying, call me.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, they called us bigots and they put up a hate site on us and all sorts of lies. In fact, it's interesting on their hate site about us. When I mentioned the thing about going to the police, there's been talk about the LAPD and some of their officers talking at some of their events and stuff like that. Well, when we were at the police station, I had asked them about something that we were thinking about doing. And I'd never mentioned it to anyone before that, never mentioned it to anyone after that. But they not only put that, once Scientology put up their hate website, that thing that I had mentioned at the police station was on there on Scientology's hate site. The only way they could have gotten that is either they had a contact in the police department there, or they have sent somebody in to work there. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure whether it is, but the only way they could have gotten that information is directly from the LAPD.
Right.
And they expanded on it. Because I said, we're thinking of doing this. Well, Scientology wrote it on their website that we had done that.
Yeah.
And that was to go to family services or whatever, which we never did. But that's what they put. So their hate website's just so full of lies and things that are exaggerations, like, like they have on there something like, our daughter had paid for all this medical care for me because of my back. What she had done was she kept pushing me to go to a Scientology chiropractor. And I kept saying, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I'm not interested. I said, it's way in California. We're in Vegas. She said, well, finally, after a while, she kept pushing and said she'd pay for it. So we went down there, drove down there, went through the thing. And then as we were leaving, the guy was, anyway, I don't want to say too much bad about the guy, but it was terrible. I said to Willie as we got in the car, I said, we're never going back there ever again. And so Scientology takes that as that. I think the thing was $55 our daughter paid for that. So that turned into that our daughter paid for all this medical care that got Phil from a wheelchair to being able to walk again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's news to you.
Exactly, Scientology exaggeration, lie sort of thing. But that's how they do it. So anything you read that Scientology puts on this stuff, they'll take one little thing that, there's not barely a grain of truth to, and exaggerate it out. So
yeah, no, it's very
that's
true.
how they do it.
Yes, and I think also there has been this checkered past with the LAPD, and not all of them. I mean, clearly there were police officers.
Those two officers that did the welfare check, I told them at the end of it, I said, you guys were wonderful, above and beyond. They went farther than I expected as far as trying to track down. So they were really actually very good. I was very impressed.
It takes some tenacity, and they were genuinely, I think, pissed off, which is, a motivator. And I think, one of the first times that I was harassed by Scientology, it was by two guys who had been LAPD officers. They had been kicked off the force. But they started working pretty immediately after that for Scientology. And so they were just used as mean, bad guys who would
we don't talk about it, but we've had a lot of our own experience of private investigators and
especially during the Billboard days.
We have a whole story there about that.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure you do. Yeah. And what's interesting about it too is that you can be treated like criminals, but all you are parents who
trying to get in touch with our kids. Yeah.
And want to be able to have the right that you had before, that you should be able to have access to your children, and for them to be able to have access to you. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're seen as being these people who are just so out of control and awful. And what is also so interesting too is how much they wanted to stop the billboard, which says something about how they knew it was going to be powerful.
Yeah. We didn't have any idea it would go that far.
Yeah.
I mean, we thought we'd put a billboard up, and there might be, we put it in a place where there were several million people going by there a month. So we thought, well, we'll get some coverage at least. But we had no idea that we'd get all that news coverage, that it would go international like that. So it got out there.
It did get out there. Right. So just to finish up, I feel like there's so much about your story, just the emotions of it, the feelings of powerlessness and wanting to see what you can do and wanting to access different kinds of media, different opportunities to get the word out there, but also that you are generalizing the message, that you're saying it's not just for our family, it's for everyone's loved ones. It's actually a beautiful message. And I hope, and I know everyone listening and watching hopes that you get to be able to have your children back. And you should. I mean, you're lovely people, and you've been
Thank
able
you.
to have the benefit of having your son with his family, and that's a lovely thing.
Yeah.
But also being able to have them see what kind of people you are and what kind of people you can be in their lives. And so I do hope that your other kids get the benefit of having you back in their lives.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Yeah. We'll never, ever stop.
Yeah, we won't give up.
No.
The thing is that we got our kids in. We raised them in that environment.
Yeah.
So we are responsible for the situation that they're in. Even if they don't think they're in a bad situation, we know what we know what they're in, and we are responsible for them getting in. So we can't give up. I know some people we've known would say, "Oh, well, after 10 years, I gave up and walked away from, left my kids in." We'll never do that.
No.
We'll never, ever give up on our kids.
And sometimes we get things like, "Oh, well, they're adults. They should be able to make their own decisions," and but if you probably say it.
If you had a sister who was in an abusive relationship, and someone said, "Well, just give up on her.
She's an adult.
She's an adult. Let her just stay in that abusive relationship." You wouldn't. You would always want to do something about it. However the abuse was, whether it's verbal abuse or controlling or physical abuse. And in Scientology, there's both. So, you wouldn't give up on your sister if that were the case. And we won't give up on our kids because they are in an abusive situation.
Yeah, right. And I think, you bring up a good point about the staying with it, but also, Willie, when you say that people say to you, well, they're adults and they're making their own decisions, there's one half of that statement is true.
Yeah.
Right? That
they're adults. Right.
But, right. They're not. And once you get into a system like that, you are not making your own decisions. You think you are. But you don't realize until you leave it that that you actually don't have access to that, and you don't have the freedom to make your own decisions. So when you do know, that you have a loved one who, may be an adult, but is not able to make their own decisions, then it elicits you to want to be able to help them know that you're there and that you're going to help them if at some point they start to see this for what it is. And I hope that day happens soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Great to talk to you. And I hope to talk to you again. And of course, we all hope for good news for both of you.
Thank you for doing this, Rachel.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay.
All right.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.